Hello, thank you for joining us to review the basics of spending money for student organizations and programs. Before we get started, let's quickly recap the previous chapters. The Student Fee Committee, or SFC, allocates money to a number of departments and funding committees, including SALP, Student Media, Student Leaders for Service, Student-Run Services, and the OBC. The Organization Budget Council allocates funding to recognize student organizations. Student organizations may also fundraise. SALP's role is to support and train student leaders to be responsible and ethical fiscal stewards, to process the request for accessing resources such as accounting, meeting space, etc., and ensuring spending follows state, university, and SFC guidelines. Money that is allocated or fundraised by the student organization is considered state money because we are a state university and the student organization or program is part of the university. Now that we have established where funding generally comes from, we can talk about how student organizations and programs can spend it. Because student organizations and programs are using state money, there are rules and regulations for how that money is spent. Student organization or program money is essentially the money of the citizens of Oregon and all of the students of Portland State University. It is a privilege and a responsibility to spend this money. The university, and therefore each student organization and program, is audited periodically and is subject to the rules and regulations set up by the state of Oregon and Portland State University. These rules and regulations are in place to ensure good stewardship of state money and to prevent the mismanagement of wasteful spending of funds. Other key differences between state money and private money to consider as a student leader include: state money does not accumulate and roll into the next fiscal year. It is returned to the original pot if not spent. The university's fiscal year is from July 1st through June 30th. Funding cannot be moved from account to account. We are only able to move expenses. For example, if the 123 organization wants to contribute to the ABC Club's event, we would move an expense from the ABC Club's account to the 123 organization's account. We would not be able to write a check or transfer funds. State money cannot be donated. Products and services paid for by a student organization or program are technically owned by the state, not by an individual or even the student organization or program. Because you are using state money, there are items that you cannot purchase, such as awards or alcohol, and restrictions on how things are paid, such as no reimbursement for services or centralized accounts. In order to preserve the privilege for future student leaders to use state resources, each leader must work to use their funding ethically and in accordance with processes and policies. As a student leader, you are entrusted with these responsibilities. SALP works hard to help you accomplish your group's goals. To do so, we often work closely with other departments. We've developed processing times for spending requests by determining how long advisors, accountants, and/or our campus partners need to process a request. To ensure your request is completed, it's crucial you submit a request according to the processing time. Being mindful of this allows student organizations and programs and SALP to be most successful. In OrgSync, you can take note of the processing times for each type of spending request by clicking on the form name. The nuances of how to spend money are lengthy and complex, so please be sure to work with your SALP advisor before spending money. Your advisor is knowledgeable and is there to be a support person for you and your organization or program. Student leaders should never spend money or promise money without prior approval from SALP. Let's use a contract, for example. Student organizations funded by the Organization Budget Council must first submit a program budget to the OBC and have it approved before any spending may occur. A student leader requests a contract for a musician for an upcoming event. The advisor defers the request to the SALP accountants. The advisor's deferral means that there is a PSU staff member who is vouching that the organization or program has the funding to cover the contract, that they are familiar with the event or services and are willing to provide support, and that the student leader and organization or program are authorized to use resources. This may also start a process to help with event planning or spark other questions that the advisor can help with. The request goes to the SALP accountant who draws up the contract. The contract is then sent to the performer. The performer signs and returns the contract to the SALP accountant. The SALP accountant sends the signed contract to the Business Affairs Office to execute. This can take up to 2 weeks or longer. Only authorized contract managers within Business Affairs are authorized by the university to sign contracts. Lastly, the Business Affairs Office issues a check which is mailed to the performer, or the performer may request a direct deposit. All requests to spend money are completed through OrgSync. The Request to Spend Money form is located in the Student Admin Club in OrgSync. Let's walk through the form using the previous contract example. You'll notice there are a variety of ways to spend money listed on the form. Let's talk about a few of them. One is through contracts, which we just talked about. All services such as performances, honorariums, and catering not provided by Aramark must be done through a contract. A contract outlines what will be done, when, for whom, and for how much. It must be signed by the contractor and the university before any services are rendered. The contractor will be paid upon completion of the services. A second option is through purchase orders. A purchase order is a written statement from the university saying that we promise to pay a bill for items. Not every business will accept a purchase order, so please check with the business before requesting a purchase order. Once you know that a business does accept purchase orders, for example, Fred Meyer's, you must submit to SALP a request with what you are purchasing. Complete the Request to Spend Money form and designate the type of request as purchase order. If the request is related to a specific event, attach an event flyer to the form. Once your advisor defers your request to spend money, the SALP accountants will create a purchase order. Pick up the purchase order from the pickup folder in SALP's main office, Smith 119, and bring it with you to shop. When checking out, give the cashier the purchase order and be sure to bring SALP back the itemized receipt. This receipt is the invoice that we use to pay the business, so it is very important to keep. Internal accounts are a third option. Portland State University has accounts set up with certain businesses. The main ones you should be aware of are the PSU Bookstore, Clean Copy, and Kinko's. The university will not reimburse you for charges from these businesses because we have central accounts these charges should go through. To make purchases from these businesses, a student leader submits a Request to Spend Money form and follows a similar process to a purchase order. Complete the Request to Spend Money form and designate the type of request as internal account. If the request is related to a specific event, attach an event flyer to the form. Once your advisor defers your request to spend money, SALP will create an internal payment form. Pick up the form from the pickup folder in SALP's main office, Smith 119, and bring it with you to shop. When checking out, give the cashier the form to authorize the transaction. The business will then bill your student organization's account directly. Lastly, reimbursements can be used. However, it is advised that student leaders avoid reimbursements whenever possible. It often takes at least a couple of weeks to process a reimbursement. If a reimbursement is necessary, always submit a request prior to purchasing anything because there are restrictions for what can be reimbursed. You can read more about ways to spend money and their processing times on OrgSync by clicking on the Request to Spend Money form title. If you are at a loss for which type of request to submit, ask your SALP advisor. They are there to work with you. Provide contact information and select your organization or program. Choose the type of expense and budget. The budget is only for student organizations. Non-student organizations will click on Does Not Apply. Complete spending details with itemization and purpose of event. Include an event flyer for purchases associated with an event. Students can request Aramark catering for an event by completing the form on their website, a minimum of 7 days before an event. Aramark will email the student and SALP advisor the catering details and estimate. The SALP advisor will then email Aramark with an approval. Students can request AV services by calling 503-725-9125 or stopping by Cavett, which is in Smith Basement, room number 1, at least 5 days before the event to request an estimate. Cavett will email the student and SALP advisor the estimate. The SALP advisor will then email Cavett with an approval. Student leaders do not need to submit a Request to Spend Money form in OrgSync for Aramark catering or Cavett requests. Now that you are familiar with the basics, there are several steps you need to take in order to be able to spend money. You need to have an approved budget by the SFC or OBC. And you need to pass each of the D2L trainings. All students who have passed these trainings and have the authority from their organization or program will be given access to the Student Admin Club in OrgSync. Work with your SALP advisor prior to spending any money. For help on using the tools within the SALP Admin Club for submitting expenditure requests, please refer to the video tutorials and manuals under Media in the Student Admin Club portal in OrgSync. Thank you for taking the time to review this script. Please make sure to look over the attached links and documents and to review all the information thoroughly.